Hello, everyone. Give everyone a second to
Hello.
join. All right. So welcome. So we are excited to have you all here. I'm going to introduce myself first. I'm Dr. Ross, for those of you who don't know me, from the Department of Political Science and Public Administration. And I've organized tonight's event, and we also have one tomorrow night, and encourage you to attend both. Tonight, we're joined by Darren Kettles, the Director of Admissions at Stetson Law, and he's going to tell us all about Stetson and give you his perspective on the application process, the admission process. Unfortunately, his camera's not working, so we're not going to be able to see him, but he will be able to share his screen so he can show us some materials about Stetson. I'm going to just start off with a little bit of quick information about preparing for law school here at FGCU. And then I'll turn it over to him to take it away and tell us about Stetson. I will let you all, I'm going to put a link in the chat. So if you go in the chat, there's a link to a survey. And that's another way that I'm taking attendance here, but also I'm curious to see who all's here, you know, what stage of the process you're at, what your majors are. And so if you want to just fill that out quickly, it's just a couple of questions. Like I said, mostly for attendance purposes. I'll put it in the chat a few more times just to make sure everybody gets a chance to do that. So once again, here's the link there. I'm also, if you want more information from Stetson, it'll record your email address, so I can share that with them. If you don't, I put a thing in there. If you don't want to get information, I won't share your email. So that's totally up to you. I'm gonna quickly share my screen though, just to.
Do I have to take mine down, Dr. Ross?
Sure, we'll find out. Let me see if I can do it. If it just overrides, although, let me see here. Okay. So let me see if it'll let me. Okay. All right, so I just wanted to provide a little bit of information for those of you who are, expect you're at different stages of the process. And I forgot to, did we start recording this? I should have started that already. One of those, maybe do two of those if you can. But if you can do that, if you get a score you like, then you can start your senior year basically ready to apply. The applications open in September, and you can be among the first applicants with your stuff submitted if you've done that. And that's a really good place to be because you can apply at any point, but it's a rolling process. And the earlier you apply, the more seats are open, the more scholarship money is available. And it also, you look pretty good if you're that on the ball, but you're in that first set of applications. So that is what I think of as the crunch time for applying to law school is really the spring and summer of your junior year and leading into your senior year. And so if you do that, you can be like one of my students a few years ago who had done exactly that, got a score that he liked over the summer, and by September, the end of September, he had already been accepted to law school with a scholarship. That made his senior year pretty darn good, pretty darn easy. So that's where you want to be. If you need advice, if you want help writing a personal statement, or you want to talk more about law school, I'm always available, whether or not I know you already. I know you now from coming here, so you can always reach out to me. If you fill out the survey, and I'll put that link in the chat one more time. If you fill out the survey, then I'll send you a flyer that I've with some statistics on the different law schools in Florida that I want to make sure everybody is aware of what the top 5 law schools are. And I'll send that to you, and it has my contact information as well, so you can reach out to me. So that's basically all I'm going to say now. We are lucky enough, I said there's 5 top law schools in Florida, and we're lucky enough to have someone from one of those top law schools from Stetson Law. So I'm going to turn things over to Darren Kettles, the Director of Admissions at Stetson Law, and he'll tell us all about that program. If you have any questions at any point, there should be, if you click on the participants button, I think you should be able to raise your hand, and I'll monitor that so that we can see if we have questions. You could also type them in the chat if your microphone doesn't work, and we'll get to questions as they come up. All right, with that, I will turn things over to Mr. Kettles.
Great, thank you, Dr. Ross. I appreciate that information, and I agree with it, and maybe I can expand on it for all of you tonight. So I really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us tonight, because I think it's worth your time. And thankfully, FGCU has been a really great feeder school for Stetson, and I think the pre-law program has just continued to grow in really great ways. So you're quite fortunate to have that kind of support on campus. So I thought I would just tell you a little bit about myself tonight and a little bit about Stetson. So for those of you that don't know about Stetson, I'll just tell you a little bit about law schools in the state of Florida and how they kind of evolved. I'll tell you a little bit about our last incoming class, which I'll share the prospectus, which is on your screen right now. So I'll share a little bit about that. And a little bit about the admissions process. Hopefully I can tailor them to your specific needs and be insightful for you all as you sort of embark on law school, the process anyway. Excuse me. So I've been at Stetson for about 15 years now. I'm very happy there. I think it's an outstanding law school, and I think there are a lot of them. There's over 200 law schools in this country. And hopefully you can find something where you feel good about where it is and the culture of the law school, and you feel like people will care about you and take an interest in your life and help you get what you want out of law school. And so, you know, I think it's important to, as Dr. Ross had said too, is finding out what it is about law schools that you like and some that you won't like, and some that you'll like the way they feel and you think you could be happy and do your best work there. So I'm hoping that, you know, I can maybe shed a little bit of information about Stetson, and certainly invite you to stay in touch with me, let me be a contact for you here at Stetson and be helpful to you in this process, because it can feel a little overwhelming at times for a lot of students, especially if you don't have a lot of resources or people in your family that has went to law school, or you know anyone that went to law school. But I don't want you to feel like you can't reach out. It's not a bother. I'm happy to field questions. I'm happy to have individual conversations or video conferencing with you to be able to help you and be supportive in that process. So Stetson Law School is Florida's first law school. It started in 1900 on the main campus in DeLand, Florida, which is just north of Orlando. Basically started over there. First 50 years, it's pretty much remained on campus in DeLand before it ended up moving over to the Tampa, St. Petersburg area, which is where we are now. So in 1954, we moved the law school from the main campus in DeLand over to Tampa Bay and to St. Petersburg and to our campus, which I'll kind of show a few photographs here too. So it's a really beautiful campus. It's 21-acre campus. There's only law school students there. So if you've never visited, I certainly encourage you to do that. We are offering tours on a sort of a one-on-one basis with CDC guidelines. We did suspend them for a bit, but we are doing those. We'll suspend them probably over some of the holiday break. But you know, if that's the only time you can visit and we're around, I'm happy to extend tours to you as well. But I do think it's a really great idea to visit campuses, spend time with virtual tours. If you can, by all means, reach out and have a tour. I think it makes a huge difference. I mean, you can actually like something on paper and you can go visit and you might not like it at all. Thankfully, it's probably one of the prettiest law schools in the country because it was an old resort hotel that was built during the Roaring 20s. So you can see some of the Spanish architecture. It was called the Royal Hotel, which was Taylor spelled backwards, and Jack Taylor was the man that built it. And he built it during the Roaring 20s, completed it in 1926, and then And from 1926 to 1932, it was an opulent resort for wealthy Northerners that actually just kind of wintered here. So it was only a resort for about 6 years before the Great Depression hit and everything fell apart, and so did Jack Taylor. And so this property sort of went into abandonment for a while before we moved over here and acquired it in the early 1950s. So we do have a downtown Tampa Law Center, which houses the Second District Court of Appeals. They actually rent space, the top 2 floors, from Stetson, but it houses our part-time program. We do have an evening program, so we have a full-time program, which is day, and we have an evening program as well. A lot of our law school has a part-time program as well too. So law schools in the state of Florida. So it was us in 1900's first law school in the state of Florida. In 1909 was the next law school in the state of Florida, which was the University of Florida Law School. In 1909, it was Stetson's first law school dean that actually left to go and open the University of Florida in 1909. So it was just us and the University of Florida Law School for almost 3 decades before the next law school came along, which was late 1920s, and it was Miami Law School. It was Stetson, it was the Stetson Law Dean that left to go and open Miami Law School as well. And then 4 decades later, in 1970, Florida State graduated its first law class then. There's been some other law schools that have come along after that as well too. So we have a total of 12 law schools in the state of Florida. I argue to think that Stetson is probably the best situated law school in the state of Florida. And of course you have to decide that for yourself, but we're kind of the only game in town there. In Miami, there's 4 law schools. Gainesville's in the middle of the state too. So interfacing with the metropolitan area, I think, has a lot of benefits to it when it comes to clinical opportunities, when you do summer externships, when you do networking opportunities. There are several counties that sort of border this area as well, which they all have county, state, and federal courthouses. So you can get great opportunities in those areas. As I said, there's 4 law schools in Miami too. And, you just want to think about where you think you're going to get a great opportunity. Stetson's had the highest employment rate out of 3 of the last 4 years out of all law schools overall in the state of Florida at almost 93%. And in that 4th year, they were also clustered together. It really didn't make a difference, especially with the top law schools. But for the past 7 years, Stetson's employment rate has had an employment rate percentage of over 90%. And those are of our graduates 9 months after graduation, JD required or JD Advantage jobs, which are required to get those kinds of statistics. So stuff to think about there. But it was the first law school in Florida to ever graduate a female attorney. In 1908, she came from the University of Michigan, and she graduated, as I said, in 1908. Between 1900 and 1930, Stetson was the only law school in the state of Florida admitting women to a legal education. A lot of sort of trailblazing kind of things for Stetson. The first to require pro bono as part of our graduation requirements in the state of Florida, one of the first in the country. And the first law school in Florida to start clinical education in the 1960s. It started as a public defender clinic, and now it's sort of grown to over 350 plus clinics and externship, more than we have students to fill them. So, I think you'll get a lot of, Stetson's really known for getting, you get legal doctrine, but you'll also get skills training as well, which is, kind of the perfect balance, I think. Stetson has 7 courtrooms on his campuses. Most law schools have 1, we have 7. So they're teaching courtrooms, so you'll get a chance to, kind of apply what you learn, depending on what you wanted to do in law school as well. So as I mentioned, I hope everyone can see this screen as I've shared it here. Somebody let me know if it's not visible. I'll just keep assuming that you can see it. So as I said, Stetson has both a full-time and a part-time program. Again, one is daytime and one is an evening program too. Several JD degrees or joint degrees that we do offer as well. Most of those wouldn't start until your 2nd year if you decide to do them. If you want to talk to anyone specifically about those opportunities, I'm happy to connect you with those. With the LLM. LLM is you would seek if you decided to. I wouldn't do that until after you earned your JD at Stetson or any ABA accredited law school. So the American Bar Association is our accredited body for any law school in this country. There's a little over 200, but that is the accrediting body. Stetson's been accredited with the American Bar Association since 1930. So we have 4 journals at Stetson as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for writing. Stetson is the #1 advocacy school in the nation since 1995. It's #3 in the nation in legal writing, ever since they've ever tabulated those scores with US News, which some people are fine with, some people aren't. We've always been in the top 6 nationally with our legal research and writing program. But we do have 4 journals, so it is something you can be involved in as far as co-curriculars, study abroad. Stetson's really still has good study abroad programs for law school. Not every law school does, but we actually have a really robust study abroad program. If you didn't get a chance to take advantage of something like that in undergrad, maybe it could give you that opportunity you might see. You can kind of see where our graduates are. They're pretty much in every state of the union now. We have over 11,000 alums. This is probably true with any law school. You probably get more graduates in your state than you would any other state too. But a lot of our students, when I do most of the recruiting for the law school, so we recruit all over the country, and students come from lots of different places, but they actually really like it here a lot of times. So sometimes I can recruit them from other places thinking they're going to go back, but they don't. But yeah, I mean, thankfully, we interface with a really thriving metro. It's probably the next big boom in the state of Florida. As well too. So I think a lot of firms are moving in, et cetera, too. So it's creating lots of opportunities for our graduates. So this is our last incoming class. So there's actually more private law schools in the country than there are public law schools too. So just be aware that just because something is private doesn't mean it's not going to be your best value. So sometimes coming from a big public institution, as you do, sometimes coming to a small private law school, you know, for your legal education, sometimes people like that transition. I mean, everyone is there just for the law students on our campus. There's no undergraduate students. You will get to know everyone. Between 1L, 2L, and 3L, you have about 750 students, give or take. So it creates kind of a very nice sort of legal and education environment for students. Our attrition rate is very low. So people choose Stetson. They don't just attend Stetson. I mean, a lot of you will have lots of choices, just like most of our students that ultimately choose Stetson too. But, you know, be driven by the right things and not the wrong things. But hopefully you can find a place that you can really thrive. So our last incoming class, as you can see, great representation. We get students from, you know, half of the United States, representing, you know, over 100 law schools too. This year, our incoming class, so we had about a little less than 2,000 applications for 240 seats, give or take. The yield was a little bit higher than we wanted. Students actually didn't melt away, and the class came in a little bit larger than we wanted, but it's such a small campus overall, and it's such an intimate campus, it didn't really feel a whole lot different for a lot of people. So we offered a little over $4 million in scholarship to the incoming class, which is the most in our 120-year history. That included scholarships ranging from just a few thousand a year all the way up to full tuition and everything in between based on merit. Undergraduate GPA, LSAT score, and character and fitness of the applicant. Stetson's probably one of the strictest, if not the strictest, law school in the state of Florida when it comes to vetting applicants. If you ever talk to the Florida bar, that's what they will tell you. So not that you can't have blemishes on your record, and we can talk about that if you have questions, but you know, just make good choices and think about the decisions that you make as you are proceeding along, and hopefully you're making good choices that won't impact your character and fitness of an application. You are licensed upon passing the bar, and that is, you know, a regulatory licensing too. So you have to apply certain behaviors as a licensed attorney in any state. So you can see where we land. Stetson's 25th to the 75th percentile, 153 to a 157. It's pretty much been that in all my time at Stetson. You know, there's something quite special about it. I certainly have gotten lots of offers from other law schools in my time here, but there's something special about Stetson that I like the way we treat our students. I like the quality, obviously, of what we have to offer. And I do think living on the Gulf Coast of Florida is a pretty special place to live and even study. Hopefully you agree. since you do. So median LSAT 155, there's been one time in almost my 15 years here that we had something beyond that. It was a 156, but beyond that, it's been a 155. Stetson's very stable, extremely well-run law school. So for the first time in Stetson's 120-year history, we have our first African-American female dean of the law school, and she's just fantastic. She's a big social justice advocacy person, a lot about human dignity, those kinds of things too. So, and diversity and inclusion in the law school experience, and hopefully continue to move towards that sort of perfect goal of having a law school incoming class that represents the population of the United States. So GPA is just under a 3.5. It's a very solid GPA. I mean, you can kind of see where those are too. So just keep in mind that, you know, every applicant is different. I mean, some people might have like a 157 LSAT, but they might have a 3.18 GPA. Doesn't mean you're not competitive, and everything's relative to the applicant pool. So we have people, you know, I just read somebody with a 174 the other day too, really interested in Stetson. Just because you have a really high LSAT, some people just know where they want to go. Those can all contribute to really getting you admitted to different law schools. Most people on average apply to about 6 or 8 law schools. I don't know what you all are thinking, but as you kind of go about this process, you know, think about that. If you are interested in applying to Stetson or any law school, I will certainly extend application fee waivers to all of you. I'll make sure you have my email address. If I think it was posted by Dr. Ross, but if it's not, I'll make sure you have that at the end. Just email me.
For everybody who's signed in so far, and I'll post that link one more time, I will send your contact information just to make sure.
Okay.
That. And I will just, on that point, asking for a fee, an application fee waiver is always a good idea. When we have, in the past, we've had a law school fair. This year, COVID got in the way, but one of the great things about that is not just seeing the representatives from different law schools, but you can ask about those. So that's a big piece of advice for those of you. I know it's expensive just applying for law school, so taking advantage of that is always helpful. And we did have a question I just wanted to, before we move on this, about what people who are getting scholarships, what their LSAT GPA looks like, if generally speaking.
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, there's kind of a range. It just sort of depends. We had people with 150 LSATs, but they had 4.0 GPAs or 3.9 GPAs. I mean, they're getting money as well. I mean, we always want to uphold the standard of the brand of the law school, of course, and credentials matter, and your credentials, it's almost like you get rewarded for good credentials. And because we can use those to obviously submit to LSAC, the ABA, US News and World Report, all the stuff is reported. The transparency is very solid. But I've seen people, you know, full tuition offers, somebody in the 163, 164 range, give or take, with 3.6, 3.5, 3.6 GPAs. I mean, they're coming in with, if not full tuition, close to it. Maintaining scholarships, as it's pointed out there, 87.3%. That's the highest amount of student scholarship receiving by our student incoming class that I've ever seen. So, and we've never offered over $4 million in scholarships. So we just continue to recognize, you know, the need for scholarships. I mean, we are a private institution, but if somebody gets a half tuition scholarship at Stetson, I mean, sometimes it's cheaper for you to go to a private school than it is to a public school. And if you get, some public schools don't offer full tuition. So just think about those. Some do, some don't. So as you're looking at different opportunities, don't automatically assume just because it's private, it's not affordable, because that's sometimes not true. You can kind of see the good range, very solid credentials there too. I mean, our perfect applicant, you know, typically over the year, 155, 3.5 GPA, give or take too. But, you know, if you wanted to talk one-on-one with me where I can be more candid, you know, you can certainly do that and just reach out and I'll find room on my calendar to have conversations regarding scholarship, because I recognize that's a huge part for a lot of you being able to make this work. So working on the LSAT and working on grades matter. just protect your grades. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. If you somehow have a bad semester and your grades are impacted, and you could spend a lot of time trying to recoup that, but it sometimes doesn't come back. So, but hopefully you can just continue to secure the best GPA you possibly can. A lot of you have aspirations for law school, but you know, the higher those grades are, the higher the LSAT, those things are important. I've seen people that have applied, been admitted with, you know, maybe a 154 LSAT, 3.4 GPA. But if they applied early enough, and Dr. Ross talked about that too, about just getting a good timeline and giving yourself an opportunity for an element of recourse where you have an opportunity to apply, get a decision, hopefully get a scholarship award. But I would probably want to hear from you at that point too, because I would want to strategize with you to see if maybe there's 2 or 3 more points in you and what that would look like. I would tell you based on the scholarship awarding grid that we use to try and equitably share as much scholarship with our class as possible. I would tell you what's possible in terms of if you can bring it up 2 points, this is what it could look like. You have a seat, you have scholarship, don't leave money on the table. And so that would be my advice to you is, as Dr. Ross said, like being earlier prepared and having kind of a timeline that you can visualize, it will allow. This past incoming class, I mean, it was so competitive and students secured their seat deposits. I mean, we were so over deposited. We had 280 something people at one point that had deposited, and we had to try and melt some away. And some people got up maybe another school's wait list, or some people deferred a year, or some people had, because of COVID complication, people had to withdraw their applications. But you know, you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you know, you don't have enough time in the cycle to be strategic as possible, because you know your generation is debt adverse, and I don't blame you. So when you have the opportunity to secure scholarship, I mean, as miserable as the LSAT is at times, and maybe some of you might like it, but you know, it is one of those things. You can make more money in terms of scholarship by doing well on the LSAT than you could like taking a whole year off to work in between undergrad and law school. It takes a lot to save money. So like the LSAT enough to get out of it what you can in order to pay for law school. That's what I always say to students. And I suspect this cycle, I mean, we're up about 70% from where we were last year at this time in terms of scholarship. I have a feeling that trend is national. The amount of people applying to law school this year, I think is going to be, it's still yet to be seen, but every indication says there's going to be a large applicant pool this year. So I just think that if you're more prepared, you're going to be better off in those situations too. So.
And let me just jump in and just say that for a common thing that when students come to me is if they're coming into it, they haven't decided until they're closer to graduation. And sometimes it is better to take that time, to take a year off and to take the time to do better on the LSAT and be more prepared rather than rushing it. You know, I have had students who've managed to get accepted with scholarships as late as May, but it's not everybody can swing that. And you know, the amount that you can save by improving in your LSAT score and taking that extra time, it's well worth it. So don't rush if you know, you're not under a time crunch that you have to start law school as soon as you're done with undergrad, or you have to graduate by a certain time. Do what's best for you, and you have to be thinking about that, because the scholarships, you know, that's why students apply to multiple schools. It's not just to see if they can get in, but it's also to see what kind of offers they're going to get and to choose the one that's best for them, not just financially, but also the best combination of school and financial offer. So we also, there was a question in the chat about what the applicant pool looks like. So you're projecting that this is going to be a larger pool than usual this year, it sounds like.
Yeah, the registrations with LSAC, I sit on like multiple boards with LSAC, and but the trend right now is I mean, nationally, applicants or registrants for the LSAT and setting up their CAS accounts, registrations for the CAS account, which is your credit assembly service that you would also set up at LSAC, which is kind of an account that you would compile your online application. But just registrations for that too, they've been up significantly, close to 30% from last year, and from 2 years ago, it was around 70%. Those numbers, of course, fluctuate too, but there's just, in economic downturns, when there's instability in markets and stuff, a lot of people sometimes look to maybe graduate or professional school in those options. I know undergraduate school trends don't look as high. I mean, there's been some dips in undergraduate registrations that I've seen too. So law school and professional school could be a little bit different, but you know, you never know what the cycle is gonna kind of unfold like, but that's where we're at right now. Last year in our pool, not only we have a wait list that very few people even got off of, but we also had a priority wait list as well too. So, and those were people that were just outright admissible, but we just had no room for them. And even if I could get them admitted, I couldn't even get them to the level of scholarship that they're qualified to technically receive. Stetson does have a priority scholarship deadline of March the 15th. And it's not like it's a finite deadline, but it's certainly something that we try to instill in students, that once you sort of get beyond sort of the whole March 15th and closer to April, a lot of students have been admitted and a lot of scholarship has been awarded at the time. So every law school will admit more applicants than they tend to that will accept their offers, right? So, you know, every law school is going to admit, usually, depending on the law school, some have to admit like 80 or 90% of their applicant pool. We're usually in the 40s. So, I mean, you know, 40-something% of our students get admitted. So, I mean, over half of our pool doesn't even get an offer. So, I mean, you know, and some law schools are much less than that. So it just depends. There's so many great law schools all around the country, but it's important for you to find a place where you think, as I said, that you like the culture, they have programming that you think would be beneficial to you. Not every law school specializes in every area of the law the way some law schools do really well in some areas. Some, you know, some are just specialty areas in others. So, you know, somebody's really interested in doing intellectual property, for example. I mean, we have classes, we have opportunities for students, but there's some schools that are just notoriously known for intellectual property and patent law related stuff. So just if you had questions about that, if somebody is specifically interested in that, I mean, I would always advise them in that way. If somebody, you know, is bound by geography, or they just think that the job market, or they want to practice in a particular area, they want to practice in the state of Florida. I mean, you know, those things are all factors in that. So, but yeah, I think I just want to stress that, I mean, applying earlier during these times, I think are really important for you too. So every law school does things different. We have certificates of concentration. We have 6 of them. You can kind of see what they are right here. I'll just kind of quickly sort of go through them: business law, elder law, environmental law, social justice advocacy, and international law. These you could choose to do or you could not. They wouldn't start until your 2L year. It's 88 credits to be conferred your JD. Your first year classes are all chosen for you. You don't have a whole lot of say over that. But once you sort of branch into your electives and maybe areas that you maybe want to specialize in, some people just do a broad perspective of different legal education or legal classes to give them a broad-based view. But some people know they want to do something in particular. I mean, Stetson's really known for our higher education law and policy. Not every law school does that. Professor Lake runs that. He's been probably one of the most regarded for higher education law and policy in the country. For some people who are interested in that too. Veterans law, some of these military, Stetson's Veterans Law Institute. If it's not one of the top ones, it would be in coming years. So. But Stetson is the #1 advocacy school in the nation since 1995 out of 200 and something law school. It's really well known for our skills training in conjunction with legal theory. That's what Stetson has just been really, really outstanding at that too. So you can't come to Stetson without getting skills training. You know, it used to be decades ago that if you if you went to law school, you got a bunch of legal theory and you graduate and have no idea what to really do with it. So that doesn't happen with Stetson students. I mean, and with most law schools these days, they don't really offer that you will have an ability to be able to launch your careers right out of undergrad or right out of law school too. So anyway, so this last part is that too. So I'm gonna exit out of here for now. Hopefully that just gave you a little bit of an overview. And I can just come to the screen here a little bit too. So is there any questions that are coming up, that I can kind of address right now, Dr. Ross, and maybe I can kind of blend those in with some of the admissions application process and maybe give my perspective on that, and maybe give you a perspective, depending on which year you are in undergrad, what you could potentially be doing right now.
Yeah, I've been monitoring the chat, and so a couple of people did have questions, but I tried to ask them as they came up. But okay. I'm sure there are other questions that people haven't had a chance to ask.
Yeah, well, please submit your questions. As you can see, I can just talk a lot of things, so I don't want it to be uninformative for you. I don't want you to not get your questions answered, and I'm sure if you have it, then somebody else is really interested in that too. But so regarding the admissions process, I think it's really important. And if there's a question comes up, Dr. Ross, just let me know and I'll stop and address it, okay? But I mean, if you haven't been to the lsac.org website, it stands for the Law School Admissions Council, and that's the parent organization for anyone applying to any ABA accredited law schools in this country. They're required to go through that service. So as the parent organization, you should know this website because you will have to. They write and administer the LSAT, which is the law school admissions test. 99% of law schools require that. There's a few that will take the GRE now, but for the most part, if you haven't taken the GRE and you have a choice, stick with the LSAT. That's the better pursuit for you at this time, unless you have taken the GRE. Some law schools will accept that. So just kind of think about that. The Law School Admissions Council, thank you for bringing that up too. So they write and administer the LSAT. It's now offered 9 times a year in the LSAT Flex version format. When COVID and the pandemic hit earlier this year, it was going to be obviously 9 times a year they're going to offer it to, because both February and March LSATs were canceled. We actually went into a quick mode where they incorporated the May LSAT, and then which was done by the LSAT Flex format, which is done by, you're allowed to take at home in your own home or in secured location, and don't have to actually report to a major kind of hall or convention center format to take the LSAT. So it's proctored by Proctor University, which is kind of a partnership that LSAC has done. So there's a format for which they'll allow you to take it. There are certain requirements that you have to have in place to make sure the security and the integrity of the test and stuff is all in place. There are certain procedures. Make sure you're aware of what those are, because there's a lot of restrictions when you can't just pick up and leave in the middle of the test, and you can't do that. You can't leave to go to the bathroom in the middle of the test. You can't do any of that stuff. So you have to be aware of those things if you're going to do these. So I just don't want anyone getting penalized. I sit on Misconduct and Irregularities on the LSAT committee. So, and it's amazing what people do and the choices that they make and the problems that they get themselves in with having some type of misconduct or irregularity in the admissions process. And if it is confirmed, those actually go to any law school that you ever apply to. That comes the very first page out of every application you get. I'm not saying any of you would do that, but I mean, some people make really strange decisions sometimes that are just completely mind-boggling. So I will say that. So, but do prepare for the LSAT. The score band for that is 120 through 180. As I showed you earlier, our median LSAT is a 155. That's a very solid score. But some law schools, they have an LSAT median in the 140s, but some have something in the 160s and 170s. So, think about where you would be competitive. You can actually go on this LSAT website. You can plug in your credentials, and they will pop up there is kind of a formula where it'll pop up every school that has your median. That's perfect right there. Thank you. And it'll give you an idea of where you would probably have a very good chance for admission, et cetera, too. So, you know, go in there and spend a little bit of time, and then it'll list them there for you. It'll give you the percentages and where your credentials stand with them. So I think it's a great tool. There's a multitude of tools at the lsac.org website. Spend time there. And, you know, there's a lot of testimonials and how people have funded their legal education in addition to scholarship. You know, there's a lot of people that are first-generation law school students and they've never had anyone before them. So, you know, have people with, you know, imposter syndrome and just wondering if they should be doing this. I mean, I happen to think that earning a JD is very powerful. It's a problem-solving degree. I think there's a lot of utility to it. So whether you practice law or run your own business or go into politics, or, you know, maybe you're a lobbyist or general counsel for an organization for which you have a lot of interest. I mean, I think it's a very wonderful pursuit, but, you know, not everyone will do it and not everyone should do it. But, you know, if you have some interest, then you could, you know, spend a little time on this website and it'll kind of hopefully expand, you know, the possibility and give you a different perspective. Did I see a question just pop up, Dr. Ross?
Let me just follow up, because that was actually a question that somebody had asked me privately earlier about for different law schools, and that is what I would suggest that you use. I'll put the link specifically into the chat so you can use this tool to see where your GPA and score would land for schools. So that'll give you an idea of where you would be, you know, where based on just those scores, you would be within the applicant pool for different schools. That is a really useful tool. For the LSAT, you know, we're all unsure what to expect in the future, but for now, these are the dates that have been announced.
These are all confirmed for now. They haven't gone past April at this point because they just don't know where the pandemic will be, whether they're going to actually switch. I can't imagine that they're probably not going to have a combination post-COVID where there's going to be, you know, the flex option in addition to, some people like just being in person. So.
And the question will only be whether, you know, when post-COVID actually gets here.
And that's it. So.
And some of the things that, you know, some of the issues that have come up with LSAT Flex, I imagine some people would prefer to be in person because it feels more like a test-taking environment. You're less likely to do some of those things. We'll see, but usually there have been at least 2 test dates over the summer the last few years. So I would. Yeah,
I feel optimistic. They're usually June and July that they've had too. So, you know, during COVID this year, I mean, our incoming class, we divided the class into 3 sections. And there were 2 classes that were on campus and the other one was virtual. So, and they chose that. So they got to choose it. In fact, we have been very successful and just finishing this semester. We ended up starting 1 week earlier and we're just coming up to Thanksgiving and nobody will return after Thanksgiving too, but we've been able to conduct our entire semester. Not every law school has been able to do that. So we feel very good about how we've actually extended the safety to our students, including having classes over the weekend this cycle or this semester. We've even had students that actually had, you know, they switched midstream because of whatever reason, but, you know, for a lot of people, they couldn't travel, but they still wanted to obviously advance their legal education during this time. So yeah, I've known colleagues at many other law schools where they started in person and they ended up having to go to virtual too. So we're planning at this point to actually have the same format for spring. We had to get, every law school had to get approval through the American Bar Association, our accredited law school, or the accreditation for law schools, to get virtual options. I mean, of the 88 credits that you need to be conferred your JD, typically you're only allowed to do 15 credits based on the ABA accreditation. So they actually had to do special sort of you know, requirements or the changing to our times really to accommodate this. So what other questions, did questions come up? Has Stetson conducted classes virtually this semester? Yes, so they plan to. I think I addressed that for Veronica. Hopefully, you get an idea.
And I imagine you've not planned yet beyond spring because
Yeah, it's just an unknown part too. LSAC constantly gives us updates regarding that too. And if you want to reach out so you can have some idea, I mean, sometimes they share with us, you know, and then they're just posting this and we get the information. But I mean, they keep this website up very up to date. And, you know, they know that there's like literally thousands and thousands of people taking the Lsat and wanting to get the most up-to-date and accurate information. So we'll see what happens.
I would anticipate that here at FGCU and elsewhere in law schools that there will probably be more virtual options than there had been pre-COVID, because there will be, even with a vaccine and, you know, things easing down, there's still going to be folks who are, you know, more at risk, who will want to stay virtual. So I imagine there are some aspects of this that aren't going to disappear. So there will be, even here, I would expect that even if I'm back in the classroom in the fall, that there will still be some options for people to attend virtually. So, but
I agree with that as well too. I think it's sort of going to open a whole nother possibility. You know, I think there's good and the pros and cons to both. I do think having a 1L experience in person, if you know, people that I like attorneys, they'll just talk about it. I just can't imagine not having a 1L experience in person and what that would have been for their legal education. So I see Nick is asking about the average requirement for full tuition. Hopefully I've addressed that too, but typically the incoming scholarships are based on merit, GPA, LSAT, and character and fitness, as I said. So typically students that are getting full tuitions, you know, they could have like a 3.8 GPA with a 160 LSAT or something. So, I mean, these are really incredible credentials. So, but it could be somebody has a 164 and they have like a 3.4. So it kind of could depend. So it's a little bit hard to always say, but typically students getting like top scholarship awards are getting LSAT scores in the 160s, starting in the low 160s and up, with GPAs that are reflected in the same kind of format, like 3.6, 3.5 ranges and higher and such too. Somebody asked, what other factors do you look for in a student? I mean, I think it's a really good question. I mean, I don't want you, you know, to think you have to placate to the law school. I think that you need to just authentically be who you are. I think that some students have different opportunities than others. Some people, they had an opportunity where they could just study and they didn't have to work or anything. I mean, I had to work. And so for me, I never had an opportunity where I just was able to focus on my education. And I'm not unhappy about that. It's just the way my world was. So if you're able to take co-curriculars and get involved, I mean, you know, don't do it at the expense of your grades. I would say making sure that balance is there where you recognize that your job right now is to get good grades and to complete your bachelor's degree with the best education and the best grades possible. But if you're able to weave in a couple of co-curriculars, if you're able to do some type of externship or secure something working in a law firm, but you don't even have to have that. If you want to do that, don't think it's a requirement for law school. Many people enter law school and they've never had any co-curriculars and they've never worked in a law firm, or they've never worked at a public defender's office, or they've never even been to a courtroom, or never even met an attorney. I think those are all very helpful factors, and if you can do that, but don't think that that's a requirement to apply to law school. It's just not. But I think it does help solidify that you in fact would like to do this. This is a lot of work, but getting involved, any type of leadership opportunities on campus, if you have an opportunity to be part of a student organization or some type of community organization and you want to do that, taking a good range of classes that are strong writing majors. If you have a chance to take electives and you still have some options left, I mean, and you could take a philosophy class or you could take a logic class. You can take an obscure class that is so uncharacteristic of your major. If you could take like I don't know, a Japanese literature class or something, like, I mean, something that's just so kind of out of your body. You never know who your future clients will be. You never know how that could potentially help you. I mean, I've talked to many faculty over the years, and you know, I have tried and find little things that I can give to students, and they talked about those kinds of things that I just shared, but they wish they would have taken more things that are outside their majors.
I think that's great advice. And that's something my last semester I had space, I took an Arabic class, just.
Oh, that's great.
Those things
Fantastic.
are great. And, I would say students sometimes think that, I should take a class in legal writing, or I should take something that is law school related. And that's not necessarily true. You're going to get that training in law school, but you have the opportunity to take whatever you want, and doing something like that, exploring something that you're just interested in, could open up, some new worlds to you, and build on some other skills. The technical work of what it is to be a lawyer, you're going to get that in law school. That's, everybody is entering with a different background, but that you're going to get training on once you're there. And actually,
That's true.
this topic, I think something that students don't always know much about is, once you're in law school, like how the law school prepares you for your first job, and that, what you do in the summers, and how that works to get experience if you're somebody who doesn't have the internships and doesn't have the experience going into law school. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want you to think that you have to have this checklist of all these things, because I mean, that's just simply not true that you have to. I mean, do things because you want to do them, but don't think that you can't do that while you're in law school. I mean, some people will have an opportunity, and we will do, I mean, as I said, everyone's there for the law students. So you will know, Professor Siniglia, who oversees clinics and externships on campus, of which I've said we've had a multitude of them. I mean, most people do one at least, if not more. So you have those opportunities, and sometimes those are just great kind of educational experiences, but then it can confirm maybe you have no interest in doing that, but you thought you might. But sometimes it's great to build relationships and networks, and it doesn't hurt you to have knowledge about another area of law that you have no interest maybe in doing, but you never know how it could benefit you. So we strongly encourage people in their between 1L and 2L, and even 2L and 3L. There's federal clerkships as well too, which are also very highly coveted, and many of our students have secured those over the years, every year. So it is one of those things, along with pro bono, which is a great networking opportunity for you. Some people earn pro bono through legal aid, for example, and they're helping migrant farm workers or something, or veterans fill out wills and stuff, that there are just ways for you to build a skill set and to build clinical rapport with clients that you potentially could have down the road. So some students secure their first job at a law school in their 2L year. Stetson has about 140 plus firms and hiring bodies that come to campus to secure our employment opportunities, but our career and professional development office, every one of them is there for the law students. There's no undergraduate students. You're just there. You will get to know them really well, and they will get to know you really well, which I think can be really beneficial as you're starting to build the confidence up as you're getting in law school. I mean, it can be overwhelming. It can be very intimidating. All these things are part of it, but we're there to help reassure you. If you're admitted to law school, if you're admitted to Stetson, we believe you can handle the rigors of law school, and you will pass the bar, and we will help you secure your first job at a law school, your launch job. Sometimes your first job at a law school, that might not be your dream job, but your second job should be. I mean, you will have a chance to start networking more and more, and that's when you start involving yourself with maybe different bar associations. We do something called Inns of Court, which is usually touching on a theme, a legal theme, where we have multitudes of alums and people in the legal profession that are coming to attend and offer up skills and mentorship. Our incoming class this year, everyone was matched up with one of our alums, especially in an area of interest that you have. So you have that. You're also matched up with the 3L when you come in, so a third-year student. So you actually have these mentorships established as you first begin. A very overwhelming part of your legal education, your 1L year, is going to be by far probably the most challenging, but everyone's in it together. And so, I think that there's academic success on our campus. So if you're struggling with a particular topic that was taught in class that day, go to academic success, go to your faculty member, go to your 3L, your mentor, go to your alumni mentor too, to all help and support you as you try and get through that 1L year, which is probably the most challenging as well. So I just want to be cognizant of time here, Dr. Ross. I know I don't want to.
I do want to see if anyone has questions, but I'm glad you described all that, because particularly for students who don't have family members who are paving the way for them, who are unsure about this process, it's good to know that they have that kind of support.
Yeah, and know that too, when you're on a campus where everyone will probably know you, if you don't know where to go, I mean, just come to me, especially if you've gone through the admissions process and I work with you, just come to me. I will do a handoff for you. I will walk you over there and do the introduction for you. And if you want to meet somebody prior to that, if you want to talk to somebody in career and professional development before you even apply to law school or during the application process, I mean, they're all willing to have conversations and provide advice to the best of their ability. I mean, all these things make a huge difference as part of finding a culture that's supportive, et cetera, too. You don't want to find yourself in a place where you feel like you're 100% alone and nobody's there to help you. I mean, you don't want that. That's a miserable experience. And I've known students over the years that, okay, they're deciding between us and Emory, or us and Miami, or us and Georgia or something. And I'm like, I'm not saying that these are all great law schools, but there's going to be some that you're going to feel better at than others. So don't find yourself miserable in a place in a very challenging program and feel like you're all by yourself in that process. It's just horrible. It's debilitating. And I've known students that have done it. And there are a lot of law schools out there that are very selective law schools, and the assumption that every single person that gets in them is happy, that is just inaccurate. So find a place where you like the way it feels, you trust your judgment, ask these kinds of questions, and you can tell a lot about the culture of a law school based on representatives too. As a law school admissions officer, if I didn't think Stetson was the real deal, I would not be here peddling crazy to any one of you. I think it's the real deal, but you have to decide that for yourself. But there's tons of law schools. And some you'll have no interest in, some are in places you have no interest in going. So you have to start paring it down. I mean, find a place where there's interfacing with communities and metros or cities where you get access to opportunities as well, not, potentially being in a place that's very isolated. If that doesn't work for you, I think that could be a big challenge for a lot of students because they have to leave that area to find and secure opportunities. So think about those things as well.
And if you are particularly interested in Stetson, there are a few former students, graduates of FGCU, who have contacted me, let me know that I can share their email address. So,
and I will too, sure.
Yeah, if you don't know anyone who's been into law school, they said, by all means, pass on their email address and they can talk.
Thank you. Yes, it's great.
Last 2 or 3 years. And
we have outstanding students coming from Florida Gulf Coast. I mean, part of the reason why I'm happy to obviously work with Dr. Ross, the pre-law students there. I mean, some people will choose Stetson and some people won't, and that's just the way it is. But every year we get outstanding students from Florida Gulf Coast that matriculate at Stetson, and we're happy to have them. So, yes.
So, yeah, if anyone has any more questions, by all means, put them in the chat. Let me just plug those, following up on that, find the right law school. Law schools are very different, and the only way you're going to find out how they're different is by getting information, which is why we have another event tomorrow with a representative from FIU, which is, another good school, but quite different in many ways from Stetson. So, it's great that you came here, but you could certainly, if you decide to come to that event tomorrow, you'll be able to compare what is different about that environment at a public law school that is a little bit new, considerably newer than Stetson.
Yeah.
Is what we're learning tonight. So making those kinds of comparisons and seeing what appeals to you is an important part of that process to find the right law school for you.
That's true. That's all good advice. Yeah. So, I mean, I just want you to pursue this. I think, again, it's a worthy pursuit, whether you never come to Stetson or even apply. I mean, I hope you will, but I want you to do this for your own benefit but feel like it's the right thing for you to do. because, I've seen it literally transform people's lives. I've seen people come in sort of raw and green and rough around the edges, and they graduate and there's a polished, refined, they're problem solvers, they're wonderful communicators, and they're wonderful leaders. And that's what we're building too with the JD.
That's great. So let me just say, if you have other questions, we'll stick around a few minutes in case you want to ask questions one-on-one. Happy to do that. Like I said, I'll send out, if you filled out the little 3-question survey at the beginning that I posted the link to, I'll send you my contact information, and I could also forward the materials that you shared tonight so that everyone has a copy of that. And so that way,
and fee waivers, if people, like, I don't know if you want to just email me separately, if you want fee waivers, if you want to, because if you're in this cycle, if you're a junior, or you're in your last semester of your junior year, I mean, I think you should start getting information. And when you signed up with the candidate referral service with LSAC, you could get inundated with different law schools. There's over 200 law schools, and they can all email you. So my advice to you, if you haven't done that already, I think it's important, but set up a separate email account specifically for that, because if you have one that you use with Florida Gulf Coast, like, you will literally get inundated. So I don't want you to ruin your FGCU email address, because it could be really bombarded. But be careful where you choose. You can always unsubscribe, but just remember that they're going to reach out to you in different ways, because everyone's going to want, people are going to want FGCU students at their law school. I can tell you that.
Great. All right. So like I said, we'll stick around in case anyone has a one-on-one question they want to cover, but I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We'll hope to see some of you tomorrow as well. And thank our guest, Darren Kettles, for sharing his insight with us. I really appreciate him taking the time to talk to all of us tonight. So, we're here for you. So definitely keep in touch, and good luck to all of you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I just typed my email address in there too. I know Dr. Ross will send it to you, but just in case somebody wants to snag it, if you want to set up, reach out. I can get you on my calendar if you want a fee waiver, or if you want to help strategizing with things and giving kind of a one-on-one perspective. I'm happy to do that as well. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And like I said, if you have any questions, let us know. Maybe
I was just super informative.
The virtual format is different. It's,
without a doubt.
I do lots of more talking in these kinds of formats than I do normally in person.
Yeah.
Veronica does.
Let's say Veronica. Yeah, go ahead, Veronica.
Hey, Mr. Kettles.
Hi.
I wasn't considering going to law school because I had some private medical things I was dealing with over the past few semesters. But I wanted to ask you, while you were talking, I did look up Stetson online, and I piddled through your academic advising, and I went through your website, and I was wondering, one, if you had living accommodations for your students, and
if we have what? I'm sorry, I missed that one part.
Living accommodations, like dorm.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also if they could be accommodated for students in wheelchairs or other types of disabilities.
Of course. So yeah, so in answer to your question about housing, Stetson has a housing manager. Stetson has its own housing to provide. So we own about 50 something homes around Stetson's campus. We have our own apartment complex that we have behind our library. Because it was an old resort hotel, a lot of the old hotel suites have been converted to dorms. So we've had many students with certain disabilities, or somebody that was in kind of a motorized cart, or even wheelchairs. So everything is wheelchair accessible, including bathroom facilities that are sort of unisex as well. So we try to be very in compliance with ADA. We have an ADA compliance officer as well, to make sure that students have, if they are admitted, that we are going to give them whatever they need to help them be successful. So if you wanted to ever talk with anyone regarding what that could look like, we have students, for example, that some are not great note takers. So we have people taking notes, and we have people that will participate in other ways to be service to their classmates too, but none of those things are issues. We have a campus that's very accessible, including some of the housing that will be set up, some of our houses, or even some of our dorms that are set up for that purpose as well. Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kittles. Like I said, I'm just exploring the idea right now, but I appreciate the
great.
information.
Oh, good. I'm glad you are. But if something else, just reach out, Veronica, and I can always give you even more details if you have more specifics one-on-one.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure, sure.
I know Nathan is in the application process now.
Okay. Oh, good. Well, I hope, Nathan, by all means, just reach out and I'll send you the application fee waiver if you don't have it already. But if you wanted to talk about anything, your timeline is great. Right now, I mean, I always think the majority of applications come in for probably the last 5+ years in February and March. And I don't know if this year is going to be any different, who knows? But I mean, anytime someone can get their application in, December, January, even in February is okay. But I prefer a little bit earlier, especially when you are an organized person in this fashion. I mean, because it does give you an opportunity for sort of recourse too, where if you could get admitted, you could get scholarship, and then you have time to plan for a future LSAT, for example. Sometimes that's the best way for someone to increase the scholarship award. GPAs, once you get in your senior year, they don't really fluctuate a whole lot. Sometimes they don't move enough in order for it to move you to a different sort of quadrant for scholarship, but it could. So, but most people's GPA is pretty much solidified once they get, certainly in their senior year. It doesn't really move very much, unless of course, you got, D's in every class or something, then it would move, so.
Yeah, it's always the LSAT that seems to delay folks, and I've been telling them if it's not earlier, getting it in late December so that you're the first ones in the new year, the first packet to look at. So it's good to know that you get so many in February, March.
Yeah, it's kind of a good rule of thumb. So that would be good advice for your students if they were sad. Of course, as you say earlier, the better. But, even when we opened our application cycle, October 1, some open September 1, some people never close. We do. October 1 to May the 15th is our cycle. But yeah, it has been a better thing, and it helps students that are capable of maybe increasing things and stuff to be able to land a lot more money. And, who doesn't need money? I mean, everyone needs scholarship. And if you don't come in with enough scholarship, you can certainly apply for endowed scholarships. Stetson has multitudes of endowed scholarships for, in 120 years. There's been a lot of people that have set up endowed scholarship opportunities. So you can apply for those as early as your first semester of law school as well. So just another layer for you to secure funding for your legal education.